Let's keep up. I'm your host, Cynthia Dill. It's Friday, March 13th, 2026. I'm in my Cape Elizabeth studio, and I'm dedicating this show to the Maine Employment Lawyers Association today because I was supposed to be in that meeting. Let's see. Well, it would just be wrapping up if I had stayed for the whole thing. I didn't stay for the whole thing. I sort of left in a huff. And so I'm going to dedicate this show to my friends of that group who I hope found it equally ironic and comical that this group of self-described civil rights warriors, right, these free speech crusaders, essentially like shouted me down because I actually just wanted to like point out that there was another point of view when it came to the issue of civil rights. So, since I didn't really get a chance to express my argument, I thought maybe I would just take a moment on the show and address a few things. You know, the topic for the Maine Employment Lawyers Association quarterly meeting, uh, the number one topic was standing up to the unprecedented onslaught of workers and civil rights. And for like the first probably 45 minutes of the meeting, we heard from members of the group who are doing fabulous work protecting immigrants and standing up to ICE. I mean, and really kind of feeling pretty good about it too. I mean, there's a little bit of chest beating going on and bragging. Um, but that's, fine. And then we moved on to uh, just a little thing. The EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, on February 26th took back, this is what the agenda says, took back the existing right of transgender federal workers to use bathrooms consistent with their gender identity. So the guy, Alan, you know, kind of presents this like, so, that's how it is. And I don't agree with it, but that's just the way it goes. And I, you know, raise my hand or whatever. I began to just suggest professionally and politely that, yeah, I think it's a good decision. I mean, this was a group of lawyers, right? And we're supposedly civil rights. And this is, in my view, this is an issue of women's rights. And so for me as a woman in the group to say, yeah, I think that actually I agree with this decision, to then feel like this onslaught of like rage. It was almost, it felt a little bit like everybody had a minute of Trump derangement syndrome. Like somehow I am personified at the moment what people hate about Donald Trump. And even though when it comes to the issue of women's rights, he's like on point. So, I just want to point out to some of my lawyer friends who might be interested in knowing what the perspective is from a feminist, a woman who also is a civil rights lawyer and has a record of standing up for free speech and all kinds of civil rights. So, you can get off your high horse about where your morals are here, folks. Like, get a grip on yourself. This isn't just an issue about transgender rights. And I'm hoping that people who have an open mind will take it seriously because it is an existential threat to women and girls when you have laws that deny the reality of their differences based on sex. So I asked David Weber, the leader of this group, and a leader statewide, nationally. He's an employment lawyer and a legend in litigation. He's a fabulous lawyer. Um, and he's not like anyone who will shy away from an argument. So, I mean, I asked him, what's a transgender uh, person? And he said, somebody who, is identifies differently than what the sex assigned at birth. Okay. So, and I challenged him on that language. And again, the people in the room were so offended that somehow I just reject the language about sex assigned at birth because it's not based in science. Sex assigned at birth as opposed to what? Your sex is your sex, and so I just refuse to just adopt this language, sex assigned at birth. It's it's not truthful. And, so let's just use as an example Andrew Balser, who killed his parents and his family pets violently in like 2017. Well, a couple years later, he identifies as Andrea Balser and therefore has the right in Maine to be housed in the state prison and is housed and actually has to bunk with a woman who has been assaulted and harassed by this guy. Just because he says he identifies as Andrea, he gets to be in the women's prison, and so the women prisoners are terrorized, and it's not his sex wasn't assigned at birth and then changed. His sex when he was born was male. His sex when he committed the heinous crimes of killing his family and his pets was male. His sex now in the state prison is male. A DNA test, right? It's gonna show he has XY chromosomes. I mean, it's just the way it is. And if you don't believe that, then that is not, that to me is an ideology. It's no different than a religion. Okay? If you believe that someone can be born in the wrong body, that's no different than believing in the Immaculate Conception, right? Christians, they believe it. They believe that Mary, was a virgin when she, gave birth to Jesus. And they have the right to that belief. I'm a Christian. We have the rights to those beliefs, but what we don't have the right to do with those beliefs is force others to believe it and to say it. And that's what this gender ideology does. And that's what this sex assigned at birth suggests, that somehow sex can change when it can't. So, this idea that somehow the issue of taking back the existing right of transgender federal workers to use bathrooms consistent with their gender identity. No, no, no. What happened was women were able to get their rights back to have safe and private bathrooms on the basis of sex. And, that's a celebration for women. And let's just talk a little bit about why it is so important for these trans identifying, men, okay, that identify as women, okay? First of all, let me just say, you can identify as a woman all you want. I grant you that you have that right, okay? And by all means, go for it. But what you can't do is when there are categories for a good, a sound reason to be separated on the basis of sex, that your gender identity doesn't trump it. You have to go by the rules like everybody else. So Andrew, Balser, he shouldn't just be able to suggest that he suddenly identifies as a woman and have access to women's jails and its gender identity laws that enable him to do it. And this language somehow that sex assigned at birth is scientific is just false. It's just false. And I hope people at the Maine Employment Lawyers Association appreciated the irony of a woman speaking up for women's rights and being shouted down by a bunch of privileged white men. I mean, come on. Is this progress? I don't think so. So I know there was a lot of people in the room who have an open mind, and I hope you'll consider what I think is the civil rights issue. Okay, the civil rights issue is women protecting their rights on the basis of sex. And transgendered people, however that is defined, because there is no definition of a transgender person, okay? People often refer to intersex. Okay, that's a very, very small population. And there's no evidence to show how many people who are intersex are actually identify as transgender. So some do, but we don't know how many. And the more important point is that if you do have a chromosomal disorder, right? If you're not XY or XX, male or female, well, you would have protections to do, everything that you need to do for your human dignity under the ADA, or the Rehabilitation Act. I mean, it's a condition that would enable you to get an accommodation based on that fact. But for the most part, we're talking about like 99.9% of the population is divided on the basis of sex. And it doesn't happen at conception. It's not an assignment. It's not a random assignment. Every cell from the moment of conception has your DNA and your chromosomes on it. And so it's a fair way to separate people. And It's not hate or bigotry or transphobia for women to stick up for our rights. And so, what I hope some of my civil rights warriors might consider is joining me on protecting the women who are being forced to be housed with, and like I said, actually forced to bunk with violent male predators in a locked cell. That to me is cruel and unusual punishment. That is the civil rights issue. That these women, because of this state law, are being denied their rights under the Constitution. And if you want to join me in that fight, I hope you'll contact me because, civil rights isn't just for Democrats. And the idea somehow that the Democrats and all the liberal organizations who like to celebrate all their good work and pat themselves on the back for fighting the man. Well, I think you need to open your eyes to the rights of women and girls that are being deprived because of gender identity laws and recognize that when it comes to the elections, it's the Republicans who are offering to repeal gender identity laws, and the Democrats want to put it in the Constitution. Those are our choices. I think those are, to me, the choice is very clear. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that doesn't make me less of a lawyer, it doesn't make me less of a civil rights lawyer, and, it doesn't make me, any less, um, I don't know, righteous than anyone else. So, Mila, uh, maybe we should have a debate instead of having a shouting match because, I happen to believe that all this language, this gender jargon is just a subtle attempt to, you know, it's misogyny is what it is. It's basically forcing women to accept men in our safe spaces, on our teams. If I'm a female elderly person in a senior home and I request a female nurse to bathe me, it shouldn't be on me. I shouldn't get in trouble for having objection to a man. And just whether he identifies as a woman or not, it doesn't change things. And this idea that somehow this trans ideology that others are compelled to not only believe it, but we have to cough it up, things that aren't true. Men that are not women. I mean, you can be a trans identifying man, you can be a trans woman. Go for it, express yourself. But, if someone wants a female nurse to bathe them, they should get a woman. And if there's a strip search in a prison of a female prisoner, it should be by a woman, not a man identifying as a woman. And if there are locker rooms where athletes are getting changed, there should be a separation on the basis of sex, just like there should be a separation on the basis of sex for sporting events, because sporting events are not, you know, it's not a competition of gender identities. It's a competition of bodies, and bodies are separated on the basis of sex. And, um, we gotta, it's people who are fighting gender ideology are really, it's about love. It's about teaching these kids and sending a message to society that no matter how you're born, you are perfect, and that it's a healthier route to love yourself. That's my belief. Your body's your temple. You got to love yourself, right? And love who you are. And for believing that, and for wanting to spread that philosophy, I'm accused by a lot of my liberal colleagues as being hateful, and it's really unfair. You need to open your minds. You really do. Um, there's a lot of group think going on there. So I welcome the dialogue. And until next time, this is Cynthia Dale signing off. Take care.